Yes, we need to hire as an industry a PR expert for unmounted programming. And I think sometimes it's like a consolation prize or a rainy day activity or something that we're just doing unmounted today. We don't get to ride today. But there's so much opportunity for richness and learning and so many beneficial therapeutic things in there. I think the rest of the industry needs to catch up a little and look at the many benefits of unmounted programming and how we can offer more of this mindfulness and a holistic based horsemanship. There are just so many rich opportunities to help more people in lots of different ways and incorporate all of this work. So yeah, PR campaign for unmounted programming. There are a lot of people who are doing awesome things. Keep putting the word out there.
Yes, please.
Welcome to the Herd is Calling podcast. This is where we break free from conventional norms to explore the art, science, and wonder of the horse-human connection. I'm Josh Williams, and together with my wife Victoria, we're your hosts. Our mission is to inspire and empower you to improve the lives of horses. Subscribe to the Herd is Calling on Substack for behind-the-scenes stories and unique content. Now, let's get to the episode. Welcome to the Herd is Calling podcast. Today, we are really excited and honored to have Chrissy Stout with us. I'm going to read just a brief bio to help everybody get to know her a little bit better before we bring her on. Chrissy Stout was born and raised in Australia, hailing from a long line of horse people with deep ties to farming, ranching, and rural living. She is currently the program director at Haku Baldwin Center in Hawaii, a nonprofit providing equine-assisted services to youth and adults with diverse needs. Chrissy is a PATH International certified therapeutic riding instructor, a PATH International mentor, and a Horse Powered Reading Facilitator. She is a Region 11 ambassador for PATH International and was recognized as the region's Credentialed Professional of the Year in 2022. Chrissy also owns Teaching Aids for EAS, a company specializing in adaptive visual aids to improve communication and enhance instruction inside and outside the arena. She is passionate about creating a culture of mindful and compassionate horsemanship and empowering the next generation of equine professionals. Wow. Welcome, Chrissy.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so fun to be here with you both.
Really happy to have you.
This is exciting.
We've had a chance to get to know Chrissy over the last couple of months because she was in our program, and it was really a treat to have her there because she added so many great aphorisms and sayings that we ended up adapting into the program and that the whole group started using. I really felt like we were learning as much from Chrissy as she was from us. And we're excited to be able to share you a little bit with the rest of the world now.
Exactly.
Thank you. Mutual Admiration Society. I learned so much from you both over the last couple months, and it's been amazing. It has really changed the way I teach, which is really cool.
Nice.
Fascinating. Yeah. And I'm sure we'll come back to that. I'd love to learn more about that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, teaser.
Teaser. I wonder if you could start by just telling us a little bit about what your horse life is like these days, maybe like a snapshot of a typical day for you.
Sure. So I work at Haku Baldwin Center in Hawaii on the island of Maui, and I'm at the barn several days a week. I love to get there first thing in the morning before anyone else does. We have a team of very enthusiastic volunteers, so sometimes they get there before me, or sometimes we're driving up at the same time. But when I get to the barn, I'm usually setting out the schedule that has staff, volunteer, horse assignments, the lesson schedule, any tack and equipment we need. And then sometimes I'm bringing horses in, sometimes volunteers are bringing them in, sometimes I'm setting up the arena, getting out tack, adapting and adjusting the tack as needed for each participant for that day. Sometimes I'm going over lesson plans for other instructors if they're the ones teaching, whether they're in training or they just need another set of eyes or ears on their plan for the day. And then we launch into lessons. They could be mounted or unmounted, private or group, adults or youth, veterans or civilians. And then we have our awesome lessons and we wrap up clean up, and head out. Sometimes I also have the privilege of schooling horses, which is where like my personal horse time comes in. I don't have horses of my own, so all the program horses I treat like my own sometimes. We're all a part of the family. We call our horses our equine co-workers because we treat them with the same respect that we want to treat people with. So yeah, that's a good day is when I get to the barn early, and it just sets me up for success, whether I'm there for the whole day or just a few hours. So yeah, a snapshot.
Sounds lovely. Yeah. For those who don't know, I like to set the stage a little bit just for like where you are. Chrissy is on Maui, and the Haku Baldwin Center is in Upcountry Maui. And I'm guessing you can probably see the ocean from like probably everywhere you stand.
Wow. See,
Yeah.
I actually didn't realize that until you just said that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that the Hawaiian Islands are the top of giant volcanoes. So when you say up country, it means you're just up a little bit. And I had exaggerated it previously, said you're at like 3,000 feet, but you corrected me and said it was 1,500 feet off of sea level. But from seafloor, that's some like 26,000 feet or something up the volcano. They're the biggest volcanoes in the world measured from seafloor. So when you're up there, you have this vantage point looking back out at the ocean, and it's a really beautiful place, beautiful climate. There's these purple trees, flowering trees everywhere. It's a really amazing place. So
It's pretty stunning. We have, I think most people think of Hawaii as beaches and palm trees, but we also have countryside. We have our centers on 33 acres. We have green rolling hills and vistas and views. And if you don't have a coastal view or a mountain view, you just drive down the road a little bit. And then you can see, we're usually very aware of where the ocean is and where the mountain is. You know, Mauka or Makai. We use that as directionally. North, south, east, west, whatever. Mauka, Makai. You just need to know where the ocean is and where the mountain is, and you're good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
Yeah. What type of populations are you really working with and helping at the Haku Baldwin Center?
Yeah, as you know, Josh, I know you have some experience on Maui as well. We are kind of in the middle of the Pacific, and that means that we are kind of a melting pot of all different types of cultures and people. And we at Haku Baldwin Center, we have a program for military veterans, which is mounted and unmounted depending on the participant's needs and what we have available to offer. And we also have a youth program, which occasionally we have adults in that program as well. That population may have physical, cognitive, emotional, social disabilities and abilities and challenges. And we focus on what each person needs specifically, and then pair them up with the horses, the instructors, the volunteers that they need to excel.
Okay. Fascinating. I want to circle back to that more because I know we've had some really interesting conversations about language that I want to highlight more, but I want to keep talking about Chrissy first before we go down that road too much. So we'll just put a pin in that for a moment. Yeah. But why were you first drawn to horses?
Well, this is interesting. I had a really interesting conversation with my mom yesterday. And I said, Mom, I'm going on a podcast. Can you tell me who I am? So,
oh, interesting.
Nice. Good strategy.
And she, right? Because your mom knows. So what I started with, which caught her off guard a little bit, was interviewing her first and getting her story, because, you know, we know that the generations before us are part of our story as well. So she came from a long line of, we call them farming in Australia, but in the US it would be called ranching. So a long line of ranchers. And she was telling me about beautiful experiences she had as a child. She had lots of older brothers in this ranching family, and they would bring the cows in. Her brothers would go off galloping, and she said, I would just do like a lovely soft canter. They had the privilege of having all these well-trained horses. So she's like, I just got to canter. I just squeeze gently and then we're off. So she told me that she knew the sleeping patterns of the cows, She knew where they like to sleep, how they like to sleep. She would go out first thing in the morning while they were still a little sleepy and gently guide them and bring them in. And she's like, my brothers would just go out like full bolt. The cows were all stressed. They would get the job. They would all get the job done. But she did it in a way that was compassionate and lovely, and not even intentionally. That's just the way she liked it. And she just knew so much about these animals, and it was just beautiful to hear a little bit more about her perspective, which was awesome. She also told me that I did not like horses when I was a kid. I was not the kid who took lots of lessons or did 4-H. I don't have the same experience that a lot of my coworkers have. I was the kid who wanted to sit in the shade and read books while other people were riding. So my two sisters, I have an older and younger sister, and they were very much into horses. We had the luxury of having lots of animals where we lived. There's a picture of my older sister as an infant sitting on a horse, and then that was it for her. She just still hooked. And my mom said they put me on a horse, and I was just like, nope. At 2 years old, I was very clear that I did not want to be on top of the horse. So, and then when I was about 8, well, I was still around horses, and we had horses, and I always thought they were beautiful and interesting. I just was not compelled like my sisters were. So when I was 8, I contracted a rare condition that led to a physical disability. So at 8 years old, I couldn't ride even if I wanted to. So that kind of further drew me away from horses. When I came to Maui, I found a volunteer opportunity that included horses, and I figured I could probably learn how to be around them again. And then all these years later, I'm still at that same place teaching other people how to be around horses too. So my mom was she's still very surprised that I'm the child of the 3 of her children that got certified and is now teaching people to ride horses.
Wow, what a story. Yeah, nobody would guess that you're from Australia by listening to you.
Yeah. The accent comes and goes. When I talked to my mom yesterday, it comes right back in.
It does. Oh, that's fascinating.
Huh. Don't study me too closely though.
Okay.
That's interesting. It's still in there.
Really good at accents and mimicking people. I just spent so much time observing as a kid because I couldn't participate in a lot of things. And I just watched people and I listened to people, and the accents have just always been really easy for me. And it just goes back and forth without too much effort.
Well, if you hang out with us once more, you'll start getting some Oregon drawl. It's a little slow. We say awesome a lot. This is the only 2 things I know for sure.
My sister is from Southern California, and she's always saying these things where I'm like, what? Like, she's like, you guys are just on a different time frame. You guys just, well, we know it takes most people 15 minutes to get there. We're giving you guys 30 minutes. Like, it's just like this thing.
That sounds like Maui time. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're with you in Hawaii. Yeah. Got it.
I wonder, and this is totally off topic, sort of, do you do any impressions just based on your ability to observe people?
I reserve the right to refuse to answer that question.
Okay, nice. Later,
Okay.
maybe.
Duly noted.
Well, not like celebrities, just people I know.
Got it. So I just think it's fascinating that you have this awareness of your ability or the skill that you acquired in observing people and being able to assimilate those observations and make meaning from them. I gotta wonder if that's what your special gift talent is with horses too, because that is so much of it. I think so much of what we teach, what we talk about is just the ability to observe and to read body language and understand what's going on based on just watching. Would you expound on that?
Yeah, horses are 100% body language. And they observe us, and what I'm learning from you guys as well, they are observing us every second, especially every second that we ask them to join us in our space. So yeah, I think we're doing ourselves and our horses a disservice if we're not taking the time to slow down and notice them and observe them. And then if we are in the position of teaching others, like the three of us are, it's important to impart that knowledge and create that space for people to have the joy of observing horses. And we learn so much about ourselves when we slow down and do that too. So yes, definitely. I think it's a skill that can be learned and honed for sure.
It sounds like you had that. That's interesting. They call what we call ranches farms in Australia too. That was interesting. But it sounds like you have some generational history around animals. Sounds like your mom was very attuned and sensitive. It's something I learned because I grew up in Central Oregon, which is like rancher area. And it's very, very kind of the macho rodeo centric, like, in fact, most ranchers around here now use four-wheelers to round up cattle. Yeah. Very few actually even use horses. When I started learning from Victoria, her background was in rein cow horse work, and she really explains that the best way to work in cattle is as quietly and as softly as possible, because you don't want to stress the animal. Not only is that great for just being kind and empathetic to the animal, but it's very practical too. You don't want to add stress. You don't want them to lose weight and burn extra calories. There's like a lot of really specific reasons for that. So it sounds like your mom was a real natural cowgirl, for lack of better words. And
yeah, she was before her time for sure. When you're talking, it made me think of Temple Grandin and her efforts to really change the face of the cattle industry in particular, and how animals are handled especially in the last days and moments of their lives. It's super important. Every day is important for us to have this compassionate lens for horses. And, when we think about horses and stress, it's really important to know the signs of a stressed horse and how they can all be so different. Like, we are blessed with lots of draft horses at the barn, and quarter horses and a Morgan and thoroughbreds, and they're all so individual. And then breed specific draft horses can be really introverted, and their like level 5 stress is another horse's level 12. So learning what each horse needs is so important, and doing what we can, like really assessing what we're doing every single moment, from when we're walking out to the pasture to when we're walking them back to the pasture at the end of the day or the end of their lesson time, and reducing the amount of stress that they have to take on, the unnecessary stress. There are so many things that we do with and around horses that we don't know are stressful for them, and taking a wider lens and looking at how we can change our processes. The number of people that are handling horses, which is huge when you're talking about a therapeutic riding center in particular, when you have people coming in to feed, and sometimes those people are different every day. Sometimes there's multiple people cleaning stalls, turning in, turning out, bringing back in, grooming, horse leading, tacking up, sidewalkers, riders, parents, participants, instructors. Like, those horses are getting so much feedback, and they're having to tolerate and accept so much from the humans around them, and things touching them, tack, adaptive tack, balls flying over their heads, like all kinds of things that we try to desensitize horses to, but they never lose their nervous system. That doesn't change. They never lose all of the instincts that they need to survive. Those never change, no matter how much we try to assimilate them into what we're doing. And we can have horses do all of the things that we love for them to do, especially in a healing practice. We can still do all those things and do our best to reduce as much stress as possible, and pay attention to all of the human things we do that are really unnecessary and detrimental in some cases. Super important.
Yeah, just the confusion I see sometimes between humans. I mean, that's a big one. It's just like this lack of clarity that is happening between horse and human, and back and forth, vice versa, that's where things start to get usually, for lack of better words, just can be scary, can be deflating. And yeah, just what you're talking about with the sensory overload that we tend to put on horses on a daily, and those kind of programs, we ran a kids program that was cranking all the time. The assisted learning stuff, the therapy stuff, all of that stuff asks so much of the horses. Then on top of it, just taking into account that we know horses have such a they're so much more sensitive than we can ever even imagine. To me, that is just like, let's just dig into that. And in that, when we start unpacking all of that and working with that information, I think, that's where things can get really good.
Yeah. And the more you notice, the more you notice that you need to notice.
Yes.
If that makes sense. It's, horse people know, the more you know you don't know about horses. There's always an opportunity to learn more, learn from different people, be open-minded, be okay with being wrong and trying again, all of that stuff. Yeah, horses are just fantastic at allowing us to do so many things that we want to do with them.
Well, and when you mentioned that you kind of just were a natural born observer, and probably both, and you had a lot of opportunity to cultivate that talent or that skill, just through your personality and your life experience and all the kind of organic things that go into that. Yeah, I mean, just you are uniquely positioned to put that lens into your horsemanship practice, which I think is very cool.
Yeah, and even something that I learned from my horse journey from both of you is just one example of an exercise. It's silent and half speed. And so that, like Josh, you were talking about earlier about how animals respond to silence. They don't need all the noise that we make around them. They don't need us on our phones. They don't need us having a side conversation. They don't need us filling the space with talking because we're nervous or, whatever the reason may be. So we have been implementing in our pre-lesson grooming and post-lesson grooming silent and half speed, which is pretty challenging for all used to talking. And as an instructor, I talk a lot. So I am right there with everyone, reminding ourselves to slow down and only talk when we need to, when we're getting stuff ready. I also created, especially in our veterans program, where community building is so important, and we want participants to, build relationships with each other and build relationships with instructors in the arena or wherever we're having our sessions. I created a space for talking people and then a space for silence around horses. So which worked. It's like, yeah, if you want to come have a chat, let's walk over here, which was a space away from horses, but where I could still see everything happening, but where the talking people were standing. And so that's the silent part. The half speed part is just slowing down. So that could be, it's just slowing down your movement, slowing down your thinking, slowing down your breathing. And the amazing thing is that immediately the horses relaxed more. Like we take some pride in how relaxed and calm our horses are, but they relaxed even more. They just like sunk in, and like finally the humans are breathing. Quiet. This is great. Some of them fell asleep in the cross ties, which we don't love them to do. We want them to still be paying attention to their surroundings, but it was amazing. And I had one veteran come up to me and say the following week, she said, I told my therapist about this. And my therapist was like, do more of that. Do more mindfulness. So we, making sure before you even approach the horse, we check what's happening inside our body. We do some deep breathing. We wait for the horse to connect with us before we approach them, which is kind of like them giving consent before we touch them or ask anything of them. And then we silently and slowly halter them, bring them in, groom them, get them ready for their lesson. Sometimes grooming is the lesson. It's amazing what we can observe when we slow down and what we realize we're missing, the information that horses are giving us. When we're talking, when we're rushing, we're missing signals. We're missing information that the horse is communicating to us, which is, it's just this beautiful space to be in. When we are watching the horses, they're communicating with their bodies all the time. They're watching what we're doing with our bodies all the time. And even if we're not talking, our bodies can be exuding so much energy. So being aware of your body language when you're doing slow and half speed can be so awesome too. So just one example of how, like a practical example of how we can implement, because some of these are concepts that everyone's like, yeah, sure, that sounds great, but how do I do that? Or I thought I was already doing that.
Right,
I have an
right.
example of how to do that better. So it's an incredible experience to slow down more and notice more.
Beautifully said. Yeah, we talk a lot about how horses have their own language and culture. And I think it's safe to say that that language and culture doesn't include human words. And generally speaking, it's at a much slower pace, not to say they're also very fast and can react very fast, but I think being in a slow, calm state is so critical for them to feel safe and to feel secure. And I wonder, or actually first I wanted to say too, that like your attitude of learning, and like you said, the more we know, the more we don't know, we agree with that 100%. A lot of times in the horse world, that isn't necessarily the vibe. I think there's some guarding, there's some lack of vulnerability happening, whatever it is, posturing, et cetera, et cetera. And something that we really appreciated about you was you brought that concept of beginner's mind to what you do. Like when you showed up to our calls, you're obviously an expert in your own right. You're the director of program. You work with people every day, but you came every day with like a notepad and just like ready to learn. And we feel that way too. Every time we come with the horse, it's like we feel we're students of the horse, not experts of the horse. And that just opens up the possibilities. That's why beginner's mind is one of our primary manifestos. But I was curious too, because you have a community-based program, you want people to come there and be able to connect, because that's very important for healing and wellness. And I wonder if you've noticed the silent half speed actually improves that, even though during that time you're not able to talk to each other. But do you find like more visualizing after that, people connecting more deeply, maybe later?
Absolutely, because their heart rates are dropping and their nervous systems are cycling back down. So when we're in that space, we are more open, we're less anxious, we are able to notice things more, we're more in tune with our own body, we can communicate better with the horses. The horses have also cycled back down and their nervous systems are in check. When we do all of that as staff and volunteers, like we're setting the participants up for success as well. Because when they arrive, we all want to be in a state that's like starting from scratch, resetting, starting from zero. And yeah, I definitely think it's beneficial for building community, building better relationships between horses and people. Our volunteer team is incredible, and they have so much compassion and empathy for horses in our program. And I know they take it very seriously. And when we, I always say, when we know better, we do better. So sometimes it's really hard to have those realizations that, you were contributing to a horse's anxiety or activation. So we just, every day is a new opportunity to reset. And every day is a new opportunity to make those connections. Like horses need to be connected. They live in herds. They need to be connected. They can connect with us if we're in a space that is conducive to connecting and noticing them and being compassionate. Yeah, it's imperative for building community.
That's almost as if the things that help us be better with horses help us be better with life.
Yeah, it's annoying like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
If we're better at humaning, we're better at horsing.
It's a loop. It's one of those infinity
Yeah.
loops, or like a Venn diagram. It's all
But
the
fortunately, I think those of us that are particularly awkward humaning, you can work on your skills with horses. You don't have to start with the humaning. You can go, I'm going to work on my horse skills first, and then automatically your humaning will improve.
Yeah, and a lot of people who come to us, I mean, we all have those things to some degree, but people who come to us with, that's a characteristic of their diagnosis, the way that they move through life, they might have trouble connecting or communicating. And then you introduce a horse into the picture, and there's just all of this intrinsic motivation that they have, that there's nothing that you could do in a classroom or in a clinical setting that can replicate that, unless you put a horse in a room, and then it's really incredible. I just keep coming back to saying words like incredible and awesome, and sometimes magical. So,
we hear you. Yeah. I mean, you're speaking our language. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, totally awesome.
Rad. Yeah.
But I am thinking about heart coherence.
Oh, yeah.
When you're talking about just everybody's nervous systems getting back to regulation, back to homeostasis, or into that healthy cycle, that natural cycle. And then the heart coherence thing, where then everybody's beating off of everybody else in a really good way. And that's connection. I mean, I think that's when we say magic, when we say awesome, when we say incredible, there is some stuff we're learning, some science that we're learning that is like physiologically, energetically, there are things happening interspecies wise with our nervous system that really is this recipe for connection. And when folks that, seek services and have sought services for healing or growth, or, any kind of assistance, figuring out what their next move is, or how to relate to people better, or how to learn about themselves a little bit more. Horses just are this being that can offer that, I think, because of that awesome potential for connection that is like immediate if you're able to plug in, on that nervous system level. It's just like, boom, now we're connected. What can you show me about myself? But it's something that is real, and it's why equine therapy is so effective. Yeah.
Valid and effective. Yeah.
Right. And equine-assisted learning. So yeah, I just think we're going to continue to learn the why of that, but we know it's a thing.
Yeah. There's science. When we don't have the science to describe those feelings, and sometimes even if we do, we say things like awesome and magical because we all feel it, and the horses feel it. And they give us immediate feedback, immediate 100% honest feedback every second we're with them. And it has so much potential to challenge us. And then
it's the challenge piece
through that challenge. And on the other side of the challenge is trust and accomplishment and confidence. And we also get to be around horses and smell them and touch them and watch them. And it's just such a rich experience that encompasses all of the senses. And even for people who struggle with sensory overload, just being in the space with the horses can help, and co-regulating can help with sensory regulation. It's amazing.
It's so magical.
It's awesome. Yes. Yeah. All of those things.
Research and science out there too, if anyone's interested. Just Google it. It's fascinating.
I wonder, just like this magical path, this awesome ability of horses, like, what about you? What specifically, I know you said you had an opportunity there and you were thinking, but you kind of went over that a little quick. I wonder if we could dig down a little deeper, maybe go down a few layers.
What drew you to where you're at now?
So when I was talking to my mom, we both agreed that I always wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a preschool teacher. I was a nerdy little bookworm kid, and I always related to the librarian. I would go and sharpen pencils for the librarian, and I always related to the teachers so well because I was just fascinated with the way they communicated new information. It was just so interesting to me. And not just the information, but the way they communicated it, the way they were. Now I know that they were lesson planning, which is what I do. But at the time, it was just like, they're just so amazing and creative. And when I came back, I didn't know that I was getting into this like realm of teaching and instructing people. I saw this opportunity to volunteer with kids, and I'm like, cool. Volunteer with kids. I had another couple of volunteer opportunities that I did when I first got to Maui, and interestingly, they were like Toys for Tots. I was selecting and packaging Christmas presents for kiddos, but there were no kids around. It was just me in the warehouse wrapping presents for kids. I'm like, I don't know if this is gonna cut it. I thought I was gonna be with children and working with children. So when I saw this opportunity at the barn, I'm like, I think I could learn how to be around horses again. And I discovered that what I really wanted to do was teach. And what I've also discovered in the last 5 to 7 years is that I also love to teach adults, which I didn't think that I did to do. Our veterans program started in 2013, and it took me a little while to figure out that that's something that I wanted to move into. And what I learned is that horsemanship is teachable to anyone. Being around horses can teach us so much, and you can teach anyone the skills that they need to be around horses, because all you have to do is just be a present human. That's all you have to do. So that's what drew me in, and I'm still there 14 years later at the same barn. And I was just hooked from the first day. This is what these people are doing here is incredible. There are times where they had too many volunteers, and the program director at the time would call me and she'd say, we don't really need people today. You can take a day off. I'm like, well, can I just come sweep? Be there, or you can come in and sweep. I never wanted it to end. I always wanted to be in the vicinity. And then when I found out that I could actually become an instructor, that was really cool.
What did that look like when the opportunity to become an instructor came up, and your journey into PATH International? How did that all unfold?
Well, when I first started, there weren't PATH certified instructors at our center. The assistant director at the time, somehow she could tell that I might have a talent for teaching, and she just, in a lesson, it's just like, you're going to teach this part of the lesson. What? And just slowly, she kept getting me to come in and teach instead of being a sidewalker or a horse leader. And that developed a little bit. And the program director and assistant director retired. And another person came in who was already a pretty accomplished riding instructor. She did dressage and Western and all the things. So those two positions were opened, and we became director and assistant director. And then we decided that we would take our team of 4 instructors and get us all certified, which is quite the feat to do that in a remote location, because it requires a lot of mentorship and getting a lot of hours in. And it used to also require, so the evaluation portion, it was a live evaluation. We flew evaluators in from the US mainland, and it used to require a writing test. So the instructor would have to do a writing test to show they had writing skills in order to be able to teach those skills. And then there was a teaching test, teaching a group of writers with disabilities to see that you could actually incorporate goals into lessons and teach a lesson. You really have to know your skills if you're breaking them down and doing a task analysis. So of course I looked at that and thought, well, as a non-writer, I don't know if I could do that. So that's pretty disappointing. And then I found out, because PATH International is an organization that is passionate about adapting services so people can enjoy horses and have joy and healing around horses, there was an accommodation that I could apply for. So my accommodation was to teach another rider through that warm up, the walk, trot, canter lesson and the cool down as if I were riding. So interestingly, I passed, which was shocking to me. I remember crying in front of the two evaluators in our private debrief when they tell everyone if they passed or not. And I just looked at them and said, really? Are you sure? Are you sure that I passed that writing test? And they said, absolutely you did. So I passed the writing test, and then I passed the teaching test with a little bit better scores than the writing test. And it changed my life, that I could do something, that I could learn to teach something I was only able to observe and not feel. And as instructors, we know that one of the as riding instructors in particular, one of the most difficult things is teaching feel. That's kind of a concept. And so you can't feel it while you're teaching it, but sometimes you can. So I found that I could feel it and see it, and then see it and feel it, and was able to somehow figure out how to teach it, how to get certified to teach walk, trot, canter lessons to able-bodied adults.
Wow.
So I'm still not sure how I did that. It took a couple years for us to really put in all of the work and make sure we were dotting the I's and crossing the T's. So we, interestingly, also, now the certification involves not riding. So the test is teaching an able-bodied person through a walk, trot, canter test. So the accommodation that I did years ago is actually the test now, which means that I have a perspective that I can give people that I'm mentoring. Like, yes, you can do it because I did it. I did it. You can absolutely do it. So that's been an interesting twist in the PATH certification that was kind of thrilling for me, because I can help people even more through that part of the test.
God, that's a wonderful story. And congratulations on that. That is a massive accomplishment. Yeah,
it was a game changer. The team of instructors they have all left me now. We have a new team, but those other 3 instructors, we called ourselves the pod, because we had to be so connected and have study groups and all of those things in order to pass this really hard certification. So 3 of us went in the week or 2 after, we went and did like a 2-day backpacking trip with a few other people through, and Josh, Haleakala pretty well. So we went into the crater, or more correctly, the erosional depression, and hiked all the way to Paliku. I was not an hiker before that. I did some pretty intense training beforehand, mostly on my treadmill inside my house, in order to make that happen. And because of my physical disability is another thing, I'm just like, there's no way I could do that. But I had mentors friends in my friend group, in my instructor group, that had all the experience and said, well, I know that you can, so let's go do it. So I'd never been backpacking before, so why not go do the hardest hike on Maui? And yeah, there were moments where while I was doing it, I was just like, there's no way they're gonna have to bring a helicopter in and lift me out of here, because there's no way I could finish it. Like, I had new hiking boots, which was a terrible mistake, blisters on my feet, like muscles so sore. But there's just this mode that you get into sometimes where you just get in the zone and you just go. And I don't know if it's embodiment or disembodiment at that point, maybe a little both, back and forth. And there's a point where you're if you do the loop starting at the visitor center and end up going up switchbacks. So we did that loop. And you're standing at the bottom of this huge cliff. And the only way up is a series of switchbacks because it is so steep. And I thought, I'm not going to do it. No, that night when we're sleeping in the tent, I'm like, I'm just going to start walking out of here. I'm just going to leave a note. I'm going to leave, and then I'm going to use my phone to call a helicopter and be over. So, and we did it, through lots of emotions. I did it. One of my new friends who I hadn't met before this backpacking trip, she was literally pushing me up because some of the steps are really, the incline of the steps are really steep. So there were points where she had to push my backpack up to help me get up the steps. And it was just like this team effort of physical and emotional support that we all got through it. And so that on top of the week or two before getting the certification, that changed my life. So 2017 was a huge, incredible year for me. It was an incredible year.
It's so beautiful just to see what you're capable of in moments like that. And then to see what it far exceeds what you thought was possible.
And I hear the theme too is community, connection with people, friendship, network, whatever you want, partners, whatever pods, whatever you want to call them. Boy, we can't do it without that. We can't do the things that kind of surprise us about ourselves without that support.
Hey friends, Josh here. We've launched a free community for The Herd is Calling. It's on Substack. Subscribe to join thoughtful discussions and access exclusive content. It's as easy to use as social media, but so much better because social media. Am I right? In the words of John Lennon, a dream you dream alone is only a dream, but a dream you dream together is reality. Like the wisdom of the herd, we are stronger together. Click the link nearby to subscribe and get in on the conversation. Now, back to the pod.
I was just going back to what you were saying about feel and how something that you haven't yourself necessarily, like specifically riding in this case, felt, or if you did, it wouldn't feel the same for you. And I just think the intuition, the feel that takes is like a whole nother level. That's feel.
Yeah, I had a veteran the other day. He was saying something. He's like, I don't even know what it was, and I did this, and I just went whoosh. And I said, that's feel. He's like, oh, that's what it is. And he's been riding with us. Had a long history of riding. Came back to horses as a retired person, and like that's what feel is. It's this elusive thing, but it's just you feel it. You stop thinking about it, and you just feel it. So it's an interesting paradox, the thinking versus feeling and where all of that plays in, because you have to think about things, but then you also have to feel things. So it's like we have to sink down into our body and feel the things that we've been thinking about in order to make them stick and make them real.
It's almost like plugging into something that's out there that we all have access to, that maybe by ourselves we can't quite get it. It's kind of like I think about Elizabeth Gilbert. She wrote a book about creativity, and she's not the first one to talk about creativity this way and art this way, but like there's just all these ideas floating around. And if you're in the right place physically, emotionally, mentally to plug into that, it's all there for the taking. And I just think about that in terms of feel with horses, with relationships with people. It's kind of, to me, the golden thread that runs through all this stuff we're talking about. It's just this universal flow that we somehow, from our culture or, our traumas and any and all of it in between, have been systematically, in a lot of ways, disconnected from it. And that's why horses are so cool. They're like this pathfinder for us, like, follow me. I'll show you a way to tap into this.
When you're mentioning trauma too, I love how Glennon Doyle, I know we're all fans of her.
Yeah.
When she says, when our body experiences trauma of any level, which every body has experienced trauma if you've lived in the world, our brain has to leave in order to survive sometimes. So we all have pieces of us where we need to sink back down into our body. One, to continue being connected to people and horses. The other is to heal that piece. And horses are 100% feeling, embodied beings all the time. They can mirror that back to us so well. We had lots of cool conversations about mirroring neurons. I don't have all the language to explain that, but it was fascinating. We all have had those moments where we realize that when we're with horses, our energy, our anxiety is can feed into a horse's behavior. If we're able to affect change in our own bodies and our own minds, it can help the horse come back down too. They have lots of information for us about ourselves. They're just awesome.
It really is. Yeah. I love that you brought up paradox earlier, which is, of course, something we're always seeking. Jung said something, and I'm totally paraphrasing because I don't have it in front of me, but that when you are in the presence of paradox, you're touching up upon the truth. And right. Yeah. Isn't that interesting? And I love your story is so full of paradox. And I notice a lot in your language, and I've learned from you even more so the importance of language. But I know I've seen a lot in just conversation with you that you emphasize the word "and" when you're talking. And I know that's very intentional, that things are not always ors, that there is an "and" statement, and that speaks to paradox. We learned a lot from you about the not riding part, and we even changed the name of one of our modules. We do a play on the letters of journey, so it's 7 letters, 7 modules, and "in" was originally called "Now We Ride," which is the point where we talk about equitation and feel in the saddle and things like that. And we changed the name to "Now We Go Together," which was homage to Tom Dorance's saying, first we go with the horse, then the horse goes with us, and then we go together. So it's towards the end of the journey. So the idea is that we're going together. But I think that you have a lot to offer the equestrian world in your story, because even for people that are able to ride in the traditional sense, something that we found in our teaching, this is where I love how our worlds lined up in a really neat way, was that the groundwork, or as you helped us even with that language of going more unmounted, because groundwork is really a component of unmounted time with horses, that there's so much there that oftentimes people miss some of that. They skip over that trying to get to the riding part. We just think the unmounted part is so important, from a lot of the things you just said, all the magical, awesome stuff, the heart coherence, the mirror neurons, however you want to describe it. There are many different ways. The connection piece, that all happens on the ground. And there's so many applications for that, from therapy to volunteers to the adaptive riding community at large. A lot of that is done there. And there's even things like ground driving, to where you can still practice feel of reins and things like that.
And your body language and the
body
way you
language,
use your hips. And it's not just reins, even in that regard.
It's really everything. And of course, we talk a lot about visualization, and we refer to different traditions like Sally Swift's idiokinesis background, from Dominique Barbier's French classical dressage lineage, where they talk about the picture in your mind. So much of it is actually formed in your mind, and we can get really esoteric, where it's like, well, where does the mind stop and the world begins, but we're not going to go there right now.
Not yet.
But we had that conversation a few days ago, and I'm paraphrasing here a little bit. You said, I feel like we should run a PSA campaign for unmounted horsemanship.
Yes, we need to hire, as an industry, a PR expert for unmounted programming. And I think it's sometimes it's like a consolation prize, or a rainy day activity, or something that we're just doing unmounted today. We don't get to ride today. But there's so much opportunity for richness and learning, and so many beneficial therapeutic things in there. There are people who can't ride, and I know that well. I'm a non-rider. There are programs that are exclusively unmounted. Of course, they know the benefits of unmounted programming. And there are centers who treat unmounted programming and mounted programming, or riding programming, equally, which is awesome. So I think the rest of us, the rest of the industry, needs to catch up a little and really look at the many benefits of unmounted programming and how we can offer. We often refer to it as alternative programming, or alternative options to riding, for people who either maybe they were riding and they have a precaution or a contraindication that means that their riding is no longer appropriate, or they come to us not being able to ride, and we might call it, we make sure we have alternative options for them. I think they're just options. I'm getting a little tired of the word alternative.
Yeah.
in so many avenues. I think they're just options. They're options for people. What we do as PATH instructors is pair people up with the program that works best for them. If we have the luxury of having multiple programs, it's something that we can look at for future planning of how we can incorporate more of this mindfulness and a holistic based horsemanship, especially if we're not offering therapy services, if we're not already doing EAP or EFP or equine-assisted psychotherapy or equine-facilitated psychotherapy. For those who are not familiar with all of the acronyms and initials that we use in our world, there are just so many rich opportunities to help more people in lots of different ways and incorporate all of this work. I know as riding instructors, sometimes we want to get people on the horses as soon as possible, but there is definitely an argument for starting on the ground. I mean, we literally start on the ground and finish on the ground. But as far as doing mindful horsemanship and groundwork, start on the ground, finish on the ground, and then keep coming back to it. I feel like riding is just one portion of our time with horses. So yeah, PR campaign or unmounted programming. There are a lot of people who are doing awesome things and already know all of the awesome things about unmounted programming that keep putting the word out there.
Yes, please. I mean,
you guys are doing a great job at that. I love it. You guys are on there.
Nice. Chrissy approves. That means a lot.
I do appreciate that because we were feeling like that was really important, and we do emphasize that. That's why originally the Now We Ride wasn't until JOURN. It wasn't until week 5
and
anyway of 7.
If you go into that module, it's very little, like mostly the preparation for becoming mounted. It was like all about the way you get your horse teched up, the routine you do before you get on it. So I have been a riding instructor for many years and want all of my students to probably spend, I would say, 70% more time on the ground than they do. And I'm their instructor, and already like that's sort of my program still becomes very hard because yes, people just have this thing that you gotta ride. That's sort of the thing. And it's just so not. It's like you said, just one piece, it's one option, it's one path you can go down. And if you do that, you dang sure better be coming back to groundwork a lot, because you're gonna have, when you talk about cycles, you have a lot of repair to do. Because as humans, once we get on, we're going to be making all sorts of mistakes and doing all sorts of things that we need to come back to the ground. And like our friend Ty says, ask the horse for forgiveness. And learn from some of the data we picked up when we were trying new things, and do that repair on the ground and keep cultivating the relationship on the ground and keep learning more on the ground. I wish that was more a thing, and we're going to make it more of a thing.
Yeah, no, that's why I appreciate Chrissy helping bring that up more, because it's not like we work with a lot of people that are riding in a more traditional sense of the word here locally, but I know there's so many people that don't necessarily even want to ride or not able to ride, or if they're like volunteering, say at a barn like yours, that's just not even on an option. But they still need to learn all the same stuff that we need to learn about horse language and culture. They need to learn about how things work, how the horse's senses see the world, how they should react, how to read behavior to stay safe, to keep their people you're working with safe, to have fun, to be able to enjoy. Because it's kind of like if I was visiting another country, and if I didn't know any language or culture, I'm going to be confused and kind of lost, and probably high anxiety and breaking into a sweat and just not sure if I'm doing the right thing at any time. And that's not very relaxing or fun. So when you're able to settle into that, it's just a lot funner. And I love that side of things, not only because it helps those folks that I think sometimes it just sort of gets passed over. You try to pick up what you can from the riding community. And then what that does is it's like it forms a feedback loop where then they become the best advocates for the horse. And it becomes this healthy cycle of give and take rather than just take, which so much of the human animal world is just take.
Yeah, absolutely. I always try to remind people how important the unmounted work is, even if In some situations, a participant comes and the horse is already groomed for them. It's already tacked up for them, already has the bridle on. They're handed their horse. But it's that moment, even that moment where you're handed a horse who's ready for you, you then need to connect with that horse before you even ask them to walk on. Because if you're taking the reins and giving them a tap and pulling on the bridle and asking them to walk on, like you've missed a huge opportunity to make your ride better. If you're blowing past all of the horse's signals. We have one horse in particular who's an excellent teacher. He's very sensitive. You guys know who he is because I talk about it a lot. That exact situation with a participant just last week. And it was his second ride on him, but he was familiar with that horse from years ago. And he just from habit, and took the reins and like gave the horse a tap just behind his girth, and the horse like didn't move. I'm like, well, okay, let's reset. So let's use the things we learned about him under saddle last week and how your ask on a big draft horse, like your 1 level ask for your leg aid for a draft horse. For this horse, that's his 5. So let's reset and ask the horse, like, take a deep breath and check in with your horse. Look at his body language. Is his neck tense? Is his body tense? Like maybe you need to stand there and breathe with him a little bit more. Soften your body, give some more slack in the reins. And he took a deep breath, checked in with the horse, and gently asked the horse to walk on, and he did. If we're getting into this like push-pull battle with the horses before we even get on, the horse is more likely to be just tolerating us rather than relaxing in and going with us. There's so much opportunity to reassess everything we do with horses. It is exhausting work sometimes to analyze everything we're doing, but on the other side of that is so much awesomeness. We really owe it to our horses to keep learning and to keep doing a better job at every moment we have with them.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, I love how you use the word opportunity there too, because so much of our culture and society, we blaze over connection, vulnerability for a variety of reasons. Like maybe you have the horse there if I'm a student and maybe I do want to connect, but I'm not sure how and I don't want to look dumb. So I'm like, okay, let's just go, So then you miss that opportunity. Or maybe you're not even thinking about it because it's just not part of the vernacular of daily activity in Western society, particularly. I love how you said that. And I'm curious too, because you're in such a unique position, having now you mentor other teachers. You've been involved with PATH for a long time. You've been involved with your barn for a lot longer than that. What do you think that industry that you're in, what do you think it could use? What do you think it's missing, or where would you like to see it go in the future?
I think our industry is full of an incredible amount of incredibly caring people. I mean, we don't come into this work for the money or the accolades or anything like that. It's really hard work. It can be really exhausting work. Many people in center as instructors are also the program director and the volunteer coordinator and wearing so many hats. So saying do more things or do a better job is often not what people want to hear. But if this kind of new perspective can add to your existing equine welfare program and your equine enrichment program, if you can think of it like just boosting the existing way that you do with horses, and you guys have a lovely way to package all of this. Not that it's not hard work, but it's simple. You bring like really simple instruction and lots of actionable items and this incredibly compassionate, empathetic way of presenting the information and supporting people. So everyone should do your course, first of all. Don't just think about it like for you, like your volunteer team, like they're there to serve and to help and to maybe get more time with horses if they don't have their own, or get more time with people. And there's so many ways that we can be more mindful and incorporate this kind of practice into anything we're doing. Anything, any part, like our staff meetings, all of the above.
I love how you qualified everything you said with like, this is an industry full of caring, loving people who are giving their all and probably have very little left in the tank in many different ways, energetically, resource wise. I mean, just running a barn and not going underwater financially is extremely difficult. We ran a for-profit boarding barn and could barely keep that above water. I mean, we were just kind of like breaking even and taking care of 20 horses, you know.
Horses are expensive.
Yeah, and the work and the labor and to do it correctly and to manage everything right, it's a huge draw. I see that even just like in the bigger world of education, you know, they're not going to get their master's degree in teaching because they're just trying to get rich. Like it's a very heart-centered giving back. It's usually a calling. It's more of a deeper life meaning kind of a thing. So maybe trying to think of a way, if I was hearing you correctly, a way to help people that doesn't necessarily ask more, but that actually removes tension, or as we say, brace, so using horsemanship words, remove brace, remove tension. Just like the going slow and half speed is a great example. It's like it's actually easier, you know, it takes off pressure and it helps everybody slow down. You can do less, not do more, and actually get more to the core of that deeper meaning in the process, which is a really awesome gift, I think, especially for the givers and the healers and the teachers of the world to be able to try to find that and tap into that more.
Absolutely. And there's no shame in the way we're doing any of this, because we're all, like you said, we're all in it for, most of us, for the right reasons. And as PATH instructors or PATH certified professionals, there are more people in our industry that are outside of instructing as well. We are required to get continuing education credits in order to keep our certification. So if we could use that time to look into mindfulness practices and holistic horsemanship, I think that would be a great way to incorporate that. We have to get our hours in anyway.
Right.
And I definitely believe you will see the benefits immediately, as I did. I immediately incorporated all of this. Like I go out and learn it, and then I'm able to, and the next day, influence or input it into my lessons and my instruction immediately. So, because we all know how to breathe, we all know how to be present. Sometimes we need some tips and tricks. We all know how to be around horses, and we know how to be safe around horses and all those good things too. So I think it's not, like I said, it's not easy, but it's simple. It's simple, but it's not easy. So acknowledging that, you know, everyone has all of these to-dos already. There shouldn't be another to-do. It should be a get to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That was one of the things. That was one of the key shifts that you brought to the group. Is that saying? That was one of many, but that was a good one.
Yeah, and that I discovered that phrase or that trick when I was getting certified. So it is replacing I have to do with I get to. And I didn't realize how much I said I have to. Like, have to go to the grocery store, I have to go to work, have to do this, have to make my lunch and take to work today because I'm going to be there for a while. Have to. And if you change that, it's just an awareness, just changing it and saying I get to. I get to go to the grocery store today. Whoa, there's some gratitude there that I get to go to the grocery store. Yeah. I have a grocery store just down the road for me. It has lots of healthy options. I can afford to go there. And that it just builds this sense of gratitude, and it also kind of relaxes you a little bit. I get to go to the grocery store. I get to go to work. I get to go to work with horses. I get to have hard conversations at work that we'll all learn from and benefit from. I get to. So that was a really cool reframe that I still use today. I have a notepad that says I get to, my get to do list.
I love that.
Cool.
That's very good. So Chrissy, I feel like this is a good segue into this question. Have you figured out what your deepest intention is with horses?
It's such a good question. I don't think I have been able to put it into words yet.
That's fair.
And I'm okay with that, because that means I get to keep experiencing it and figure it out. I think the journey to figuring something out is as valuable as figuring it out. Yeah, so
that's good.
I didn't put that into words yet because it's such a deep question. And interestingly, I thought that I probably could before I took this journey with all of you. And I'm like, yep, I don't think I know it. I don't think I know it yet. That wasn't quite it. So yeah.
Still figuring it out. When you say you think that that's even almost more valuable, that process, that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I wonder, I'm just thinking, because I know a bit more about your life than what we've shared in this podcast. And you've had a lot of range of experiences, from growing up the way you grew up to moving from Australia to Hawaii. You've had some extreme challenges and overcome a lot of adversity. Do you think your life experiences with horses have helped you be a better instructor and facilitator? Just to keep digging into the hard questions here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, horses don't lie. And I think horses have helped me learn about emotional integrity in a way that's healing, like really being honest about and searching for what we're actually really feeling and what's really important to us. The horses have helped highlight that for me, for sure. Realizing how, like, I firmly believe that horses don't need to be hugged. They don't need to be kissed on the muzzle. They don't need to be fed treats every day. There are so many human things that we do. Like, humans are so weird. But horses give us, like, the more we learn about them, the more awareness we have about them, and the more awareness we have about ourselves. Like, what are we really doing when we're saying what we're saying? What are we really doing in our relationships at home and at work? And are we being congruent? Are we being, we say we want to live authentically and be authentic, but are we, and we're requiring that of other people, are we also doing that for ourselves? So yes, I think horses have taught me how to be a better human, how to human and how to adult, I think, for sure.
I was getting a little like itchy as you were talking about
I'm itchy too. Yeah, it's work. It's the work.
It's work.
It's work if you want to be around horses.
Yeah, it's work. It's really good work. I mean, we know that. We know this, but
we know this. Yeah, I guess if we're feeling itchy, maybe we'll ask, what's your biggest stuck point when it comes to your personal work with horses?
Oh, goodness. I think it's the embodiment piece, which I was talking to my sister about the word embodiment the other day. And I said, what does it mean to you? She's like, oh, I don't know. Like, you just do the thing. Like, yeah, I didn't really realize what that meant either. But I remember something that Glennon Doyle said when she was talking about trauma and leaving the body. And, she's a writer and she's very cerebral and lots of thinking. And she said, I found all these books. I found 20 books about embodiment. And, and her friend mentor said, yeah, reading some books should do it. Meaning, like, yeah, if you stay from your chin up, you're going to think you're embodied, but you actually have to sink down and feel it in your body. So I remember we talked about embodiment in the course. And I remember saying one day there was an embodiment piece. I think it went along with the equitation, perhaps. And I remember saying, so how do we do that? How do I get embodied? And you gave me some good tips about, the grounding meditation and feeling where your feet are, rocking to the back of your feet, rocking forward to your toes, rocking to the sides of your feet, and then to the inside, and slowly moving up your body. And if you're doing that with intention and awareness, you can't help but be in your body. Like, that's what it is. You're a feeling being, you are present, and you're in your body. And then you look up and your horse is like, hey, I know who you are. I know exactly who you are. Want to do some fun things. So that figuring out how to do that has been a struggle for me, especially being the imposter syndrome piece, because I work with a lot of people who have a lot more horse experience than I do. Like, grew up like you, Victoria, grew up just on horses. Like, that's your experience. Like, there's probably like every year of your life you can tie to something with horses because it's so much of a part of your life. If I'm doing something or trying something new at work and it doesn't work, that can be a hard moment for me. There's just a lot of ego involved there, obviously. But be able to like realizing that when I'm in that space and thinking, oh gosh, who's watching me do this? Or, oh God, wow, that didn't work. That's not being present. So I have realized that all I need to do in that moment is just come back into my body and be present. And then all of that goes away. So I feel like that's one of the solutions I found, or one of the tools that I have now to help with that. Not that I remember it all the time, but the horse is really great about saying, nope, try again. You don't have it yet. Go back and reset. So it's just cool.
I think we can safely file that in the simple but not easy category.
Yeah, there's another one of those. And I'll just say for those of us who have been fortunate enough to grow up with horses like me, there's a lot of unlearning that has to happen too. That's been basically what the last 5 years have been for me.
At least, right?
Exactly. It's like, yeah. So, I mean, the horses meet you exactly where you're at. Where you're at is always a little farther than where the horse would like you to be when it comes to working with the horse. So, and that's where the beginner's mind and just being curious and working on getting clear about what you're sensing, what you're feeling, is just so helpful. I took a few lessons at the Barbieres last summer, and I mean, I got told to just stop doing so much. It was just like, too much. Like, you're not here to train our horses. So I mean, it was rough, but I totally get it. We're all on our own spots on the journey.
Yeah, and that's what I always tell people, like, if your teacher, whatever field you're in, if your teacher, your coach, your mentor doesn't have their own mentor, then you need to find another one, because you have to have that beginner's mindset. You have to humble yourself on a regular basis and fail and get back up. I heard the term the other day that was failing forward. I'm like, yes, failing forward. Which sounds very hopeful. We have to rely on other people who have been in the trenches, who can help us through and help us see what we're missing. I think that's really important to have quality mentorship.
I agree. I just read something the other day that I thought was really interesting, talking about how information rich failure is, how mistakes, we often say there's a lot of data in errors and mistakes. When something goes wrong, there's a lot of data and you can learn from that. However, another argument actually against that is that when there's a mistake, when something happens, there's usually many factors involved. Maybe there's 5, we may only be aware of 1 or 2 of those. So then we go and fix that and we still fail. And then maybe over time we can start to figure out what those 5 things are. But if you have a mentor that can say, oh, these are the 5 things, and you can't work on number 4 until you work on number 1.
Because they themselves have worked through those at some point. Yeah. They've been on that part of the journey, that part of the trail. Exactly.
Yeah. And I think if you can do that, and if you're open to it and are able to stay humble, curious, have a beginner's mind, you can literally turn decades to days in the learning arc. And I think that's really cool too. Another part of mentorship that I really like is just that concept of standing on the shoulders of giants, that they're not only people who have put in much more time and hours, but there are generations and there are lineages that stretch back to the beginning of time, so why not plug into that, well,
especially in the horsemanship world. Like, this is not new stuff.
Exactly. None of it is. No.
Not new. Meditation, breathing's not new. Horsemanship is not new.
And the deeper we go, the farther back this stuff gets. I mean, that's where the golden thread concept and the kind of getting closer to the truth. It's like, oh, this is the stuff that we learn from indigenous cultures, and this stuff goes way, way back. This is the stuff that people had figured out, long before colonization. And I do think good mentors can help keep you out of the sort of shame spiral or the imposter syndrome stuff. Like having a good mentor helps sort of
perfectionism.
Yeah, it keeps you. It's not about you. Other people have felt the same way. You're not alone. What you're feeling is part of the path, part of the journey, part of the process. Keeps you out of that, I can't do this because I'm so bad at it, or whatever, whatever the self-talk is.
Yeah, those of us who like to be good at something immediately, I very much in that category. Like, oh, it didn't work. Oh, that craft project didn't work. I'm not going to do that again. It just goes back to community and connection, the mentorship and the friendship, and identifying people who have done all the same things before and they have more information than you do, just more information than you do. And I love that Glennon calls her podcast, We Can Do Hard Things. And one day she was like, there's a reason it's a we. It's not I, Glennon, can do hard things because I can't by myself. I have a huge team around me who helps me do all of these things that look fancy on the outside. It's not I, it's we. So, and even if it's a relationship of two, like the horse and you, it's a we. You have a community there. Yeah. It's so important.
Speaking of community and mentorship, we were recently in community and mentorship experience, and it went two ways. That's, the beauty of that too. And I've heard even from great master teachers that they feel like they learn and grow through the art of teaching. And it sounds like one of the things that drives your core is that being a call to be a teacher, actually. And something you taught us and helped remind too is just the importance of language. And we talked the other day, we talked a little bit about that, really specific in terms of the adaptive riding community versus therapy riding community. And you even had a word for therapy I thought was really interesting. I was hoping maybe we could talk about that a little bit today too.
Sure. So yes, there is definitely a push to look at the terminology we use and make sure that we are using it in a way that does not mislead people coming to look for our services. So if we are saying that we do therapy, we had better be actually doing therapy. So therapy in the Equine-Assisted Services world could be something like equine-assisted psychotherapy, where a psychotherapist is utilizing the horse as a treatment modality and is actually providing treatment. That's their client. They're providing treatment in that session or that lesson. It could be occupational therapy, where an occupational therapist is utilizing an equine to provide therapy to their client. And that's the same for physical therapy. It's the same for speech language pathology. Everything else comes under some other terms like equine-assisted learning, adaptive riding, or therapeutic riding. There's a lot of people that call what I do therapy riding or riding therapy or horse therapy. And I like to invite people to think about it like if they're calling it equine therapy, if we're talking about equine chiropractic, that's chiropractic work for the horse. If we're talking about equine massage, that's massage for the horse. So we always want to talk about therapy in the sense of an actual licensed therapist, whatever their specialty is. You can only call it therapy if there's actual therapy happening. And not even if they're a therapist and they're teaching riding, it's still not therapy. They have to. It has to be an actual therapy session where they are providing treatment to that client in the moment. So what I do, I'm a certified therapeutic riding instructor. So I utilize my skill set to teach riding and horsemanship skills to people of all abilities. That means I'm trained to adapt the environment. It might be to adapt the arena. It might be to use lots of visuals and colors. It might be, making markers that help people identify where they're asked to go. It could be adapting tack. It could be using color blocked reins so people can on their own look for the color that they're supposed to be hold, which is an appropriate rein length for their horse. It could be safety stirrups. So riders who have issues with wearing boots that are really tight for them, we can use safety stirrups that make that a lot safer for them to ride without a boot with a heel and a smooth sole. So there are lots of ways that we can adapt our environment. And so that's adaptive riding or therapeutic riding. And you can think about that like, there's adaptive skiing and adaptive surfing and adaptive bike riding and all those things that you take a typical experience and then you, depending on what that person needs, you adapt it in a way that's safe and effective and beneficial. So yes, terminology is important. We all know that words matter. We need to make sure that the people receiving services are very clear about the service that they're receiving. If a parent thinks that they're coming to receive therapy and that's the language that you use, that's not good. They need to be clear of what you're qualified to do.
That's interesting how you delineated equine therapy in relation to like equine massage and equine chiropractic. I never thought about that before. I know I myself have just not knowingness said equine therapy, like, oh, our friend Laura does equine therapy, but even just delineating that, it would be equine-assisted psychotherapy. It would be a much more specific way of explaining that not only, words matter so much. We talk a lot about that, even in the respect to the embodiment part about how to understand horses is the paradox, right? To understand horses, we have to learn how to use our language to understand and embody information so that we can then learn how to communicate non-verbally to horses. It's a really fascinating thing.
There are some people in the industry who do provide therapy and call it equine therapy. That's not something we do at PATH. We have clear language that we use for our programming. And like if you go to a PATH Center's website or a center that has PATH instructors, you will likely see that they're using all the same terminology. They might have lots of different types of programming, but kind of all under that same umbrella. So as an umbrella term, we use Equine-Assisted Services to encompass all of those things. And then we're very specific about the program, the language we use to describe the programs and the staff that we have available.
That makes sense. And in PATH, for a lot of people that don't know, that's a very large, it's in the name, it's international. I don't know how many people and centers are certified through there, but it's the gold standard, I would say, right? That's fair to say.
It's definitely one of the largest leading organizations. Yes, training and certifying instructors, accrediting centers to make sure that they're meeting lots of standards that are safety standards, facility standards, those for training and equipment standards, all kinds of things. And there are other organizations too, big ones and small ones, that are doing really impactful, awesome work in the community. And some of those also have taken on this optimal terminology information as well. And then there are some that, like you said, there are therapists out there still using equine therapy as a term to describe their work. Just as long as we're very clear about what we're offering and what our credentials are and what we're licensed to do.
That's the other side to the language, is it just gives the proper respect due to the certifications. Like I'm a certified massage therapist, but if I say I'm doing physical therapy for horses, I would be misusing a title there. If I said I was doing chiropractic for horses, it'd be a huge misrepresentation. So it does really matter. And equine therapy, generally speaking, I think if we're not up on the optimal terminology and if we're not in the industry, we would think that's maybe a counselor doing therapy with a person and a horse. So just being really specific about the language, I think, is really interesting. It also shows all the things that are possible. It's not just equine therapy. You just listed off like 6 different things, and I know there's probably more,
Yeah, there's interactive vaulting, there's ground driving, all those kinds of things. It's I think some people sometimes they hear that you're talking about language that we can do better or terminology standards, and it feels exclusive. But like you're saying, it helps you learn about all the things that are possible. I think it's a really inclusive approach to terminology. If we get it right, we can educate and inform people. And ultimately, people will learn that there is something out there that they can do with horses that's either therapy or something adaptive that can bring joy and healing to them. So if people, there have been, for an example, there was one parent that came to us and she said, The kid wants to ride horses. I don't really think it's right for her, though. She doesn't need people to walk alongside her, and I really don't know if this is a program. And I said, well, awesome. We have lots of independent riders. So, come on in and we can do a test ride and see how it goes. And she was thrilled that her daughter could feel accomplished and confident. And all she needed was a little extra emotional support and someone who could guide her through that. Then she was able to move on to a different program when she moved that was a more typical riding experience where she no longer needed those supports. So yes, her daughter could definitely benefit from adaptive riding programming. So it's an opportunity for us to help educate the public as well, which is important.
Hey friends, Josh here. We've launched a free community for The Herd is Calling. It's on Substack. Subscribe to join thoughtful discussions and access exclusive content. It's as easy to use as social media, but so much better because social media. Am I right? In the words of John Lennon, a dream you dream alone is only a dream, but a dream you dream together is reality. Like the wisdom of the herd, we are stronger together. Click the link nearby to subscribe and get in on the conversation. Now, back to the pod. Victoria and I have had conversations about the adaptive principle because she's in the Masters of Social Work program. And rather than that being like a special program, like what if just the whole world was adaptive? There was just something for everybody and everything.
Like options, like the word you used earlier, just another option. What we find, especially when we're talking about these adaptations that are put into place for different learning styles or neurodiversities, they actually would benefit most of us. Like they're the things that my son, who is on the spectrum for autism, gets help with to process information with his schoolwork, absolutely would help his two older brothers. But because they don't have this diagnosis, those things aren't accessible to them. And I think about it all the time. It's just like, I think the world just needs to be more adaptive. Like that's a word that we all could use. Like we all need some of this, of putting it on this population that already has a lot on their plate. Like, okay, now you're getting your special stuff. It just doesn't feel right all the time.
Yeah, and we're moving away from the term special needs and using, diverse needs or people of all abilities or just people.
Right?
Just people.
Thank you.
Yeah,
just including everybody. I remember going to a virtual presentation, like mid 2020 when we're all just not even knowing what was going to happen with the world. And she said, you could assume that everyone's just walking around all traumatized.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then that creates this, okay, well, I can assume that person's reaction might mean that they have something going on that I don't know. I may never know, but I'm going to approach them with a little more kindness today. And so that's really all we need to do. Just knowing that everyone has things that we will never know. Everyone has some level of trauma, some more than others. And all we need to do is be present and kind.
Yeah.
One question that said use one word to describe the horse person you aspire to be. My two words were present and kind. I couldn't pick one.
Nice.
That's just what we need to be. Be present with people, listen to them when they're talking, notice them, and you approach everything with kindness. Which I'm not always good at doing all those things, so but
those are intentional things. Those are things that we have to practice. Those are aspirational.
Yes.
I was at a trauma-informed training the other day, and just when you said that about we all need to assume that we're all walking around with trauma, the facilitators said we all just need to have T-shirts that like say what our trauma is and the behaviors that manifest on one side what our traumas are and on the other side, and then we'd all be a lot kinder and more present with each other.
Understanding. Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah.
I was in a training the other day with one of the largest centers in the country, super awesome. And they do trainings for other centers, which is cool. And they have this how to work with me document. So all their staff fills it out, and it has, how I like to receive feedback, how I like to give feedback, what's important to me, and all these questions. So it's a document. Everybody reads everyone's documents if they're working with them. And if there's any kind of conflict or, wow, what was that about? Is that person mad? You go back and you look at it. And if there's something in there that you could do better to support that person, then you do it. It's usually all explained in this document, which is basically like the t-shirt that says, this is how you can work with me. Like, this is my stuff, and this is how I communicate and how I receive communication. This is how we can all get along, it was a fascinating exercise to look at. So I'm excited to jump into that a little more and see how we can apply it too.
Yeah, I like that. I think I'm gonna be thinking about that. That's good stuff.
We just have a few more questions before we start to land our plane here. I'm wondering though, like what's next for you in your journey? What's on the horizon? And how could people get in touch with you or follow your process or get to know more about the program you work for? Just all that good stuff.
Awesome. Thank you for asking. So you can find our center at hakubaldwincenter.org, HAKUBALDWIN center.org.
Okay, I'll put all that in the liner notes too.
So that's our center. Those are our programs. You can also reach me on my email if you have any questions about becoming a PATH instructor or any PATH programs. As a region ambassador, that's my job to answer those kinds of, as a region ambassador, we have many. It's my job to answer those questions. You can reach me at chrissystout@gmail.com. And then I also have a company that develops teaching aids and visual aids for instructors to help instructors excel, to aid in that kind of communication, to create supports for students, aids for EAS.com, EAS meaning Equine-Assisted Services. And you can always use that email if you want to reach out to me, chrissystout@gmail.com. As far as what's next, every year I try to set bigger, loftier goals for myself, like shiny ones with flashing lights. And then I'm always blown away by, having that kind of mindset, all of the other things that kind of come to me as far as opportunities. So I'm not sure what's next, but I'm open-minded and I keep, putting myself out there in ways that I think might be helpful for people. I love mentoring other instructors. So definitely get in touch if you're curious about either becoming an instructor or receiving services. There are centers all across the country and around the world. Even if it's not PATH, there are other organizations that are awesome too. My mom and my sister volunteer at the RDA, which is the Riding for Disabled Association in Australia. And my other sister worked there when she was in high school, I believe. So lots of awesome people all around the world pairing people and horses together for awesomeness.
Right. Magical awesomeness. Okay, Chrissy, thanks for all that. I'll put all those sites down in the liner notes too, if anybody wants to dive into that some more. How about this one? The 3 things question. This is one of our favorite questions to ask. So no pressure though. If you had to sum up the most important or most meaningful ideas about horses and people to only 3 things, what would they be?
We need community. Horses and humans, and we should seek it out if we don't have it. It's there. It's all, community is just there. So find it if you don't have it. I think I've kind of said before, like, horses don't lie. They have immediate, honest feedback, and we can learn so much from them. And I think approaching everything with the mindset of I get to is super important. I get to be with my horse. I get to learn more. I get to be humbled by my horse on a regular basis. I get to. So forward thinking, growth mindset is important for humans and horses, for sure.
I hear belonging, gratitude, mindfulness, just all the stuff we've been talking about today.
All of the above.
Okay. And then what about when it comes to horses, someone or something that you feel gratitude for?
Horses and how they tolerate all the things we want to do to them. I mean, we herd them onto properties and we put fences around them. And then we ask them to come do things with us that we think are fun. So very grateful for horses and how much they are willing to do and forgive and be with us. Very grateful for that. Also grateful for mentors and friends who are mentors and mentors who are friends, for like lighting the way sometimes and shining the light on the path and saying, yeah, you can go forward and you should, and you already have everything you need. Go forth and do things. And I feel that that's part of why I want to mentor, because I want to give that back to people and help move people forward where they want to go. Empowering riders and participants in lessons, sessions, like, yes, you can do this. You can do this. You can ask a 1,000-pound animal to come towards you without talking or pulling or forcing. If you can do that, you can do anything.
Yeah. Wow. Very cool.
Yeah, I love that, Chrissy. And you already said this, but just to round it out again, one word or two to describe the kind of horse person you aspire to be.
I think, yeah, present and kind can get you a lot of places with horses. There was one quote, I think it may have been on one of your Instagram posts or something, that says, if you work on a horse, getting that horse better, that horse gets better. If you work on yourself, all of the horses get better.
Oh, yeah.
Work with. So, and you can do that through being present and being kind to the horse and to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's that mirroring process too, right?
That's all you need. We already all know how to do this. We might just need some help remembering.
I love that. I remember early on in the journey process, you said, wait a minute, I know how to be with horses. Like, I can do this. I know what I'm doing here. And that was so powerful when you said that. I was just like, that is what we all need to meditate on before we go to the barn. We are fully already where we need to be. I mean, we have what we need, I guess. It's just a matter of trusting that, letting that lead us. That's so cool.
Yeah, I remember that moment, those weeks having struggles with horses because I was trying too hard and I was thinking too much and I was just all up in my head. And I, was trying to get okay with saying, I don't know what to do. I don't know, like accepting all answers like I do for participants. I'm going to accept all answers for myself. And what came to me was, okay, so I already know how to be a human. I know how to breathe. I know how to be safe around horses and myself. And I know how to be present. I know how to notice. I think it's noticing more. I know how to notice. I know how to notice what's happening with me, what's happening in the environment, what's happening with the horse. I already know how to do all that. And if I just keep doing that, then I'm going to figure it out.
Yes. Nice. And that's applicable in life. I mean, that's what's so beautiful about the horse stuff is like, oh, let's see, that's how I should maybe approach all the relationships that I'm involved in right now. That's how I should approach all of the endeavors.
Yeah. Then there's like all of that to explore, how you can apply all the things you learn about yourself and horses to the rest of life. Yeah. Great point and activity for the future.
Next podcast.
Yeah. I know where to pick up next time.
And my life's, mission and work. Too.
Yeah. How do we be better humans? How do we
Let's
be better
just, right?
Nice small talk.
Yeah, I know. Just little stuff.
Just little stuff.
Just little things.
Little tiny concepts.
Did you have a chance to think about your mini playlist?
For stall cleaning?
So if you had 5 songs you would clean stalls to.
Well, there would definitely be some Eddie Vedder in there.
Oh, really?
Love that Eddie Vedder. But honestly, if I'm at the barn, I try not to have headphones on. But if I do, it's usually a podcast to try and learn how to be a human, or some kind of like meditation, one of Josh's meditations, or some kind of walking meditation. And then in the class, we had an awesome Spotify list that everyone contributed to, which was so cool. So, learning and hearing new music is awesome. But I always struggled with that. What's your favorite song? What's your favorite movie? What's your favorite food? I'm like, I don't know. Can someone tell me what those things are? Because I like all of the things, and sometimes none of the things, or one thing, or 10 things, or so. Yeah, usually a podcast. Lately, meditation. How important that is. Or some music that I've heard that other people are interested to, and I'm just like, let's check that out.
I think you kind of answered this, but what do you think those choices, which is you just like to keep your options open, except for Eddie Vedder, which I am with you on that. What do you think that says about you and your horse journey? Like if you could sort of bring that into, liner notes about Chrissy.
I think that I am just at a place where I'm okay not knowing the answer.
Ooh.
And right? Which this was a hard journey to get there. But I don't want to, I work really hard at not putting other people in boxes and labeling people. So I'm trying to give that gift to myself and not, I found that the more or the less we limit ourselves and how we think about ourselves and what we like and what we don't like, the more opportunity there is there. So I feel like it's just opportunity, like you're saying, Josh, before, like you like that word opportunity when working with horses, and missed opportunities and looking for more opportunities. I think that's it. That's the key. I'm just an opportunist. Is that what I am?
Yes. We talked about this before too. You're a chronic learner.
Yeah, chronic. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I get way more continuing education than one would ever need. Yeah, I can't. I'm just an insatiable learner. And still that kid sitting in the shade reading all the books.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, can't stop, won't stop.
Don't stop.
Yeah, I don't read a lot of books anymore other than like technical stuff for work. It's just like all podcasts and audiobooks. And I always say like audiobooks count as reading because otherwise you're being ableist, because some people don't process through reading, they process through hearing. So
100%. I find that I do better when I listen to the audiobook and then go back and read. Like that's what I need.
Ooh, cool.
It's just, I have a hard time with retention if I'm not doing it. So yeah, that's part of the journey, is like figuring out what works for you. And unfortunately, the culture that we live in kind of tends to say there's this way to do it. And we're like adults before we even realize that there's like other ways of doing anything. We've even like seen it or heard the language or whatever, which is kind of everything we've been talking about today.
Josh is trying so hard to wrap this up, and then we're just like, let's keep talking.
Oh, no, that's good. Yeah.
I know. We love it.
Yeah.
We are terrible. We're just going to keep talking.
There's a lot.
No, it's awesome. About. I have loved it so much. This is such a cool conversation. I always enjoy talking with both of you. I always get so much out of it, and I just appreciate it so much.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, likewise. And thank you for all the work you do, connecting humans and horses, being an advocate for the horse, always learning and growing yourself so that you can be of service to others and be of service to horses. I think if there are more people like you in the world would be a better place. So we appreciate you, and anything we can keep doing to support you, we're going to keep looking for, and we're going to keep learning from you too, moving forward.
Yeah, you're an inspiration. You're a light.
So we're grateful. We're grateful to have met you and to have had a chance to do this podcast with you too, to share Chrissy with the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just record our awesome conversations, because we've had many.
Yeah,
this is just the first.
Inviting everyone in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And this is just.
Sorry, Josh. You can keep wrapping it up. Sorry.
And this is just the first part, or maybe 2 parts. So this might be the end of part 2. We'll see how that goes. But
I'm in.
Yes, good.
This is the first series, I'll say, and we'll think of a next series to come back to. So, all right. Thank you, Chrissy, for coming on and doing this. And we look forward to the next time. I hope you enjoyed the show today. We'd love for you to join our free Substack community for The Herd is Calling. Connect with us, engage in thoughtful discussions, and access exclusive content. Click the link nearby to subscribe. It's so easy and totally free. We appreciate you listening, and as always, may the horse be with you.